You have a sculpture or an antique that you need to pack for storage or for shipping. That's what we're going to do today. The way that we're going to do this is by wrapping the piece and then putting it into a box, lots of padding. This is the professional way of doing it. This is for long-term storage. It's for transport either by you or by somebody else. It would apply to things that are small and large. These are general techniques to get a three-dimensional item from one place to another safely. Here's the list of supplies that you're going to need. First of all, the objects. We're going to have two different things. This is going to represent something light and fragile. This is going to represent something a little bit heavier, a little more robust. You're going to need tissue paper, preferably archival, and definitely not any particular color other than white. Brown craft paper. This is going to be the padding in our box. We're going to need a box that'll accommodate the piece, brown tape for the box, masking tape for the tissue paper. Box cutter, mostly for cutting the tape, and some gloves. We're going to start with the wine glass, so I'm going to set this aside for a sec. A wine glass makes a really good substitute for a fragile, delicate sculpture for a couple reasons. I mean, obviously it's fragile, but it's also thin and it has a bunch of weird shapes to it. So, these are things you have to deal with when you're packing it up. The stem, the foot, and the goblet all need to be sort of dealt with a little bit to keep it safe. So we're going to get started with that, and we're going to be using the tissue paper. These sheets of tissue paper are 20 by 30. I like to use larger sheets of tissue paper rather than the small ones because then you can use it to wrap the whole thing. It makes your life a lot easier. So our goal with the wine glass is to fill out all the different sort of cavities and parts of the body so that it's a uniform shape. It's going to end up looking like an oval, like an egg shape, and then we're going to wrap that whole thing to keep all that padding together. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stuff the goblet. It doesn't need to be super tight. We're doing this for two reasons. One is it cuts down on vibration, just because if this thing's on a truck, it's going to be shaking, and it's better to have material touching as much of it as possible to cut down on vibration. We want to make sure that the material is higher than the lip so that this is protected. So you can see that the tissue paper is higher than the lip, and so it's starting to protect it. The next part we're going to want to deal with is the stem. To do this, I'm going to make sort of a sausage with the tissue paper by crumpling up a few pieces and then rolling those pieces up in another piece that'll get wrapped around the stem of the wine glass. So those are my crumpled pieces. Now I'm going to take two sheets of tissue paper and roll those up. Gently. We don't want to squish them. Anytime you squish them, you're taking away their ability to become the padding for the piece. So now I have sort of this pillow. Take my wine glass and stick it right in the middle. And then I'm going to gently fold these pieces over. And stick it with a piece of masking tape. Just like that. So now the stem's protected. I want to do the same thing to protect the top. This time I'm going to use a little bit less tissue for my sausage because I want it to sort of match the rest of the piece. Only two pieces this time. Barely smushed. And this time I'm going to do what I should have done last time and get my piece of masking tape ready ahead of time. There's a great spot for it. I'm going to lay the goblet right in the middle of that. Fold that one over. Fold that one over, again, very lightly so you don't crush the padding, and then keep it in place with a piece of masking tape. All right, so we're almost done wrapping this. At this point, we can see which end is the top and which end is the bottom. From here on out, though, we really need to keep track of that because we always want things to ride upright. Generally speaking, it's not always the case. If you have a piece of sculpture, the most stable way, the most structural way is going to be to have it ride in its correct orientation. And it's absolutely true for something like a wine glass because you have a foot and you want everything to be on top of it. In this case in particular, you definitely wouldn't want to have it right sideways. The next thing I'm going to do is wrap all of this up. I'm going to use 4 pieces of tissue for this because we want a little bit of extra strength. I'm also going to get 2 pieces of masking tape ready ahead of time. Now I'm able to mark which end is up. So this is the foot, that's the goblet. And I'm gonna make a little arrow right there. Last thing I'm gonna do before I seal it up is I'm gonna crush up a couple of extra pieces of tissue paper and stuff them in either end. That's just to protect the lip of the goblet and the foot. Lightly crush them up. Now I'm ready to fold the ends. Before I do, 2 more pieces of masking tape. This is basically going to be the same fold as when you gift wrap a present. You're going to go down, over, and up. Down, again gently, over, and up. And if you do it nice and clean, you only need 1 piece of tape. It should stay exactly like that. The other end, make sure that that crushed up piece on top is shoved down in there a little bit. Down, over, and up. So that's it. I have my arrow so I know the correct orientation. You can see that it is now sort of an egg shape, sort of a pillow shape, but it's protected on all sides. If you want to check it out, you should just give it a little smush and make sure that you can't feel any hard edges anywhere on the piece. And it seems like we're all good. I'm going to set this aside somewhere safe because we need to make our box. We're going to assemble our box using brown tape, and now seems like a good time to talk about how to use tape very quickly. First off, I don't generally use a tape gun. I just use my fingers. And the way that you do that is by going like this. My index finger is underneath the tape and my thumb is on top. And as I'm pulling away, I'm keeping my finger underneath the tape. See, it's still there. So that way the tape can't stick back on itself and you lose the end. Everybody knows how annoying that is. So I'm keeping my finger underneath, and once you put the tape on the box or whatever it is that you're taping up, you just need to make a little nick and the tape will cut. And this is the important part. Before you let go, go like this and make a tape tab. That way you'll always be able to find the end. This is a 16-inch cube, and the way that you can tell if a box is going to work is the folds are here and here. If I grab my piece of artwork, and as long as I have a little bit of space on the top, a little bit of space on the bottom, then it should work out just fine. 2 flaps go in, other 2 flaps. I like to start with one over the top that goes over the open flaps perpendicularly to tighten up the whole box. When I'm doing this with the tape, I'm sticking it, and before I stick the whole thing down, I'm pulling it a little bit because every bit of tension just helps the box be a little bit more tighter, a little bit more solid. Stick one end, pull it across, pull on the roll of tape, and then stick it down. I did 3 strips across the bottom because I really want to make sure that that gap is sealed completely. I still have these open sides, so I'm going to do 1 strip of tape across each end to seal up those open gaps. The last thing I'm going to do is take a single piece of tape and go all the way around the perimeter of the top. This is just helping a little bit to ensure that none of this tape releases. Tape sticks to itself better than anything else, so I'm going to do one all the way around the perimeter. Fold the flaps down, makes it way easier to work with. Next, we need to create our padding for our box. So we're gonna use a craft paper. I'm gonna take a long piece of it and I'm gonna crunch it up. So I have about 20 feet of craft paper, and now I'm gonna crunch it up and I'm gonna start lining the bottom of the box with it, and it's gonna go in a zigzag pattern across the bottom of the box. You can crunch this up a little bit more because we already have padding on the piece, and so this is supposed to be the heavy duty padding. This is also why it helps to have a lot of space around you while you're doing this kind of project. So that's probably about 20 feet of craft paper. I'm gonna start lining the bottom. While I'm going back and forth, I'm gonna also pull it towards me to make sure that all those rows are really tight together. So now my bottom's covered. I'm gonna take any extra I have and start going around the outside, sort of like a nest that I'm gonna put the piece into. I need to continue building that nest up to the top of the box before I put my piece in. So I'm gonna crunch up some more craft paper. All the way up just past the top of the box, and I still have that empty space to fit my sculpture into. Paying very close attention to my this end up arrow, I'm gonna very gently put this right in the middle. That looks about perfect. Because this is so light, I do not need to pack the sides very hard. Now I only need one more piece of craft paper crunched up in a zigzag across the top of it, exactly the same way as I did on the bottom. This is very gentle, and we want it over the top of the box because the flaps are going to be the pressure that holds everything so it can't move. And that's perfect. Obviously, you don't want it too high. You want just enough pressure that you know that everything is just getting smooshed a little bit. And so between the craft paper and the tissue and the piece of artwork, everything would be locked in the middle of the box. It can't touch any edges. Everything's all protected. So I'm gonna close this up. I'm gonna make sure that the top is flat and seal it the exact same way that we did on the bottom. Remember to pull your tape tight so that you take care of this gap. Don't forget the one that goes all the way around. I'm gonna write top on the top of the box just because you can't tell as soon as you walk away from it. And I'm gonna put an up arrow on all four sides. And that's that. Next, we're gonna pack this blown glass head. Now, it's not as inherently fragile, but it is really solid. This thing probably weighs, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 pounds, something like that. So there's subtle differences. We're gonna start with the tissue paper. This time, instead of using padding with the tissue, we're just gonna wrap it. I'm gonna use about 8 sheets. Carefully roll it up. A few pieces of masking tape ready. Same folds on the end. Marking the top. So now we have a much thicker layer of tissue, and the reason that we're not going to use tissue as padding on this is because tissue paper is just too thin and this thing's too heavy. There's no way that it'll be dense enough to stop this thing if it gets moving. So instead of using tissue for padding, we're going to use the craft paper for padding, and that's all in the box. So same box as the wine goblet. And remember, we only had like one layer of craft paper on the bottom. For this, that's going to be the biggest difference. We need to have more layers on the bottom, and it needs to be compressed more because we want a good dense layer of craft paper on the bottom so that there's no way that that piece of artwork is going to be able to smoosh it down and get to the bottom of the box where it can get broken. When you're smushing the craft paper, if you do it lightly, it has lots of sort of smush to it. But if you compress it hard, it becomes a lot more dense. And so that's what we're going to try to build up all the way around this piece. So I have a nice thick layer at the bottom, and now I'm going to put my piece in facing the correct way. And all of the nest craft that was around the outside from the previous piece, I'm going to smush that down a lot too. So you can see all the craft paper from the last piece got reduced to about half the box. And so now I'm just going to crush up more craft. I'm going to keep on smushing it down pretty hard, and I just want to make sure that this can't move around at all in the box while I'm filling it up the rest of the way. You can still see the top of the piece, and you can see how far it is from the top of the box. It looks about maybe 4 inches to the top of the piece, which is just right. That's plenty of padding, so it'll be nice and safe. So same thing as before, we want the top of the craft paper to be outside of the top of the box because we're going to smush it down when we close the lid. Because this piece is a little bit more robust, we can put a little bit of pressure on it and it should be just fine. Remember to press down so you close that gap. All the seams are sealed. Now I'm going to do once around. And that's it. No rattling, no moving around. Nice and dense, nice and safe. And that's how that's done. If you wanted to be even more extra, this can go right inside of a wooden crate. And so that way it's pretty darn bulletproof. I'm James from Proper Placement Studios. Thank you so much for watching the video. Please subscribe to the channel if you have any questions about this, or if you want to see something different in another video, put it in the comments. You can go to our website for other resources at properplacementstudio.com and check out our other videos. There's lots of good stuff in there. Thanks so much. So just to prove a point, all good.